Good morning. Today we are starting the expression for refractive index in the terms of the angle of minimum deviation, that is small d, and the angle of the prism capital A. Now let us consider the diagram. X, Y, Z is a prism or the principal section of the prism in the refractive index. X, Y, Z we are considering as a prism. Next in the figure we are considering A. A means what? It is the angle of the prism. Capital A means angle of the prism. Now let us consider PQ, QR, RS. PQ, QR and RS are the incident ray, refracted ray and the emergent ray. Now next we are considering I1 and R1. I1 means what? It is the angle of the incidence and the angle of the refraction at the point of the Q. At the point of the Q. Next again we are considering R2 and I2. R2 and I2 are the refractive index and your angle of incidence. Let us consider at the point of your capital R. Now next we are considering small d1 and d2. d1 and d2 are the deviation of the light ray at Q and R. We are considering d2 is there, here d1 is there. It is the light ray at the point of the Q and R. Now, according to this Snell's law, we have the equation or we are considering on the point of the x and y. Now, for the x and y, we are considering the Snell's law. There we are getting the equation as n is equal to sin I1 by sin R1. According to the equation of your x, y, here we are applying the sin. Sin what we are getting? N is equal to sin I1 divided by sin R1. Put it as equation 1. I1 and R1 is the angle of the incident and the angle of the refraction. Next here we are considering the total deviation. Small d means what? It is the total deviation. D is equal to, we are considering d1 plus d2. Next we know that d1 is equal to, we are considering I1 minus R1. I1 minus R1 at the point of the D1 or the angle of the deviation, we are considering I1 minus R1. D1 is equal to I1 minus R1 and D2 is equal to I2 minus R2. Next we are collecting the I terms one side and R terms one side. Next we are getting the equation as D is equal to I1 plus I2 minus R1 plus R2. Consider this as equation 2. Next from the quadrilateral X, Q and R. X, Q and R. We are getting A. A means it is the angle of the prism plus angle of Q and R. Q and R. We are considering it should be equal to 180 degree. Next from the triangle Q and R. Q and R. Again we are considering R1 plus R2 plus angle Q and R is equal to 180 degree. R1 and R2 is the angle of the reflection at the first time and the second one is equal to 180 degree. Consider it as equation 4. Next comparing equation 3 and equation 4 we get, when we are comparing the equation 3 and 4 we are getting A is equal to R1 plus R2. Put it as equation 5. Next equation 5 in equation 2. Put equation 5 in the equation 2. Here what is there? Capital A is equal to R1 plus R2 is there. Here R1 plus R2 is there. In this equation we are getting D is equal to I1 plus I2 minus capital A. A means it is the angle of the prism. A means what we are calling here angle of the prism. Now this is the equation for your angle of the minimum deviation. According to the expression what we are getting, the expression for the angle of minimum deviation D is equal to I1 plus I2 minus A. I1 and I2 are the angle of the incident, capital A is the angle of the prism. Next, second one we have to find the deviation again. Small d. Okay, deviation can be denoted as what? Small d. Next we are considering, this is the diagram for your deviation. Here we are considering one line has the I1, second line I1 is equal to I2 and last one is your I2. In this case deviation D is equal to, we are considering capital D. Capital D means what? Angle of the minimum deviation. Next I1 is equal to I2 from your diagram and R1 is equal to R2 from the figure or from the diagram we are considering. Now according to the equation 5, A is equal to what we are considering R1 plus R2. Again what we are getting here, A is equal to 2 times of the R1. Next R1 is equal to, we can write A by 2. Here A is equal to R1 plus R1. Okay, total we are getting 2 R1. Next R1 is equal to A by 2. Put it as equation 7. Next equation 6. According to your equation 6, V is equal to what we are considering I1 plus I1 minus A is equal to I1 is equal to A plus B by 2. Again D is equal to 2I1 minus A, we are getting total answer I1 is equal to capital A plus B by 2. Put it as equation 8. Next, from the equation 7 and 8, or put equation 7 and 8 in the equation 1. We know that equation 1 is equal to N is equal to sin I1 by sin R1. We got the value of I1 and R1. Next, here I1 value is there, here R1 value is there. Just we are putting the equation in the equation 1. Next, we are getting N is equal to sin A plus B by 2 divided by sin A by 2. This is your answer. Now next we are starting the expression of the deviation due to thin prism. Now first here thin prism is what we have to study. The definition for this thin prism. Here we are telling the prism is very thin and here angle is very small. Angle is very small. If the angle is very small and it is having a thin prism, then we can tell it has what? Thin prism. The definition for the thin prism is the prism which is having very thin with a very small angle, and we can call it as what? Thin prism. Now here we have to derive the expression. Now here we have taken eta or n is equal to sin A plus B by 2 whole divided by sin A by 2. Consider this as the equation 1. This equation we are getting from this Snell's law. Next, if the angle of prism capital A is very small, D is also small. D means what? It is the angle of minimum deviation. Next, we are considering sin theta is equal to theta. Now next, we are considering n is equal to A plus B by 2 whole divided by A by 2. What happens to the sin? We are considering the sin theta is equal to theta degree. Next, we are getting theta is equal to or n is equal to A plus B by 2 whole divided by A by 2. Next, we are getting 2 to get cancelled. The remaining term is n is equal to A plus B by A. Next, we are considering A plus D is equal to, we have taken NA. Next, the angle of the minimum deviation D is equal to NA and take A this side minus A. D is equal to NA and A is there. A common term, take it outside. A we have taken outside bracket n minus 1. Next, in general we can take angle of the minimum deviation can be denoted as the small d. Small d is equal to A into n minus 1. This is the expression for the angle of deviation due to the thin prism. Now next we are starting the dispersal through a prism. Now let us consider a prism. Now this prism consisting, now let us consider just we are considering the prism, a ray of the light or a white light which is made to fall on the prism. There will be the splitting of the rays. There will be the splitting of the rays. That splitting of the rays we are calling as the spectrum. There will be splitting of the light. Splitting of the light. Okay, that we are considering white light. There will be a 7 colors. That 7 colors we are calling as the spectrum. The band of the 7 colors we are calling it as the spectrum. Okay, now 7 colors are with geode. With geode. Now V means it is a violet, I indigo, B blue, G green, Y yellow, O is for orange, R is for red. Here, when a ray of the light or the white light which is made to fall on the prism, there will be the split of the 7 colors. The 7 colors are with geode. First one we are considering with geode. B I B G Y O R. These are the 7 colors which are obtaining. These 7 colors we are calling it as what? Spectrum. And this is the explanation for the dispersion through a prism. Now next, here how many colors are there? Total 7 colors. When we are getting the 7 colors, when a light which is made to fall on the prism, that time we are obtaining the 7 colors. Now next we are studying about the dispersion of the light. According to the dispersion of the light, it is the composite of splitting of the light. Composite of splitting of light. Splitting of light is called dispersion of the light. Composite of the splitting of a light, we are calling it as what? Dispersion of the light. Now next, other one more is there, dispersive medium. Dispersive medium means what? Which is brings about the dispersion. We are calling it as what? Dispersive medium. Example is your glass, water, diamond, etc. These are the examples for your dispersive medium. Example is your glass, water, diamond are the examples for your dispersive medium. Dispersive medium is what? Which brings about the composite of the light about the dispersal. We are calling it as what? Dispersive medium. Example, glass, water, diamond, etc. These are the some examples for your dispersive medium. Now, scattering of the light. Scattering of light means what? Just you have to study here definition. The absorption and re-emission of the light by the particles, we are calling it scattering of light. Example, ray light scattering. Ray light scattering, it can be also defined as scattering of the sunlight by the particles of the atmosphere, we are calling ray light scattering. It can be statement or it can be state also has the intensity of the scattering is inversely proportional to the fourth power of the wavelength. Fourth power of the wavelength, we are calling the statement as ray light scattering. It can be also written as R is inversely proportional to the fourth power of the wavelength. This lambda we are calling as the fourth power of the wavelength. This is just about your scattering of the light and the ray light scattering.